So great, thank you for coming to my session. This is how to foster team success. I'm going to move the mouse out of the way because that annoys me. And thanks for coming to NetCamp 2017 or watching a recorded video of NetCamp 2017 if you're at home. A little bit about myself, in case you don't know me. My name is Mike Miles. I've been working with Drupal for almost 10 years now, doing a whole bunch of aspects of Drupal work. I won't get into all of it. I help lead the Boston Drupal meetup, help organize camps, and obviously speak at camps and conferences. During the day, I am a senior technical solutions manager, which is a long title, for a digital creative agency called Genuine. We're not a development shop. We do development, but we're not a Drupal shop either. So we do creative work. We do video production, strategy, UX. And we do have development teams. One of the ones I help lead up multiple technologies like .NET and Sitecore, front-end technologies like Node, and then the PHP team, which 99% of the time is Drupal. So I help architect large Drupal projects for Genuine and our clients. We have offices in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and in Boston. By night, I have a podcast called Developing Up, which is focused on the non-technical side of being a developer. So things such as how to work on goals, or how to work well on a team, or how to speak up and say no when a client's telling you they want this crazy requirement. So it's anything that's non-technical that aids in developers' career growth. If you want to know any more about me after this talk, everywhere on the internet, if you Google Mike Miles 86, those accounts are probably mine. Drupal.org, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I probably still have a Google Plus account, but I don't know why you would still have one of those. Now, the talk title is How to Foster Team Success. And when you think about it, success is a squishy term. We all have different definitions about what success means. So I want to level set when I talk about successful teams, to me, what that means. Now, this could be a development team. This could be a content team. This could be a sports team, a construction team. I think no matter what type of team it is, a team is defined as successful by three metrics. The first is that that team can deliver value. Whatever goal they're given to accomplish, they're able to accomplish it. And repeatedly, they're able to deliver the value they're asked to deliver. Successful teams are ones that can perform the tasks they need to do to deliver that value in the time they're given. They're able to manage the time they have to produce the most value they can. They try not to waste time or take extra time. And then successful teams can maximize the skill sets of every single team member. If you have a team and someone is just sitting idle and they're not participating, they're not being utilized, your team can't be as successful as possible. They can't deliver as much value or use the time as efficiently as they can if they're not giving everybody the chance to participate and help. So for this talk, when I talk about a successful team, I'm talking about a team that maximizes the skill sets of every team member, manages the time they have to accomplish a goal, and they repeatedly can deliver value that they're set to deliver. Now, successful teams are the product of having effective team members. And again, effectiveness of a team member is kind of a squishy term, so I want to define that here. A team member who is effective member of a team is someone who has a strong ability to communicate with team members and with external people who interact with the team. So this could be, communicating with clients, communicating internally with team leaders or other team members from different departments. Being able to clearly communicate, and I'll get into what I mean by clearly in a later section. Effective team members are those who can collaborate with their teammates. If you have a group of people who are just working siloed and not collaborating, that's not really a team, right? Those are just people working in parallel. So effective team members can recognize when they need help from their other teammates and they utilize them. Effective team members bring a sense of positivity to their team. And this is not about puppies and rainbows. This is about having a can-do attitude when faced with challenges. They don't try to drag the team down. They try to pick the team up to make sure everyone knows they can accomplish great things. And effective team members have a sense of responsibility for their team. They don't think of themselves as working on a team. They think of themselves as working on their team. They hold the success of the team on their own shoulders. The old saying of one for all and all for one. So to have a successful team that delivers value, that manages time and maximizes skill sets, you need to have effective team members who can communicate, collaborate, bring a sense of positivity and a sense of responsibility. I guess I could just end the talk now and you have these takeaways, but I have a question for the room. Who here wants the team they're on to be successful? Raise your hand. All right, great. 100% of the room. That was a trick question. By saying you want your team to be successful, what you're saying to me is you want to have a team of effective team members. You want everyone on your team to be doing the best they can to deliver that success. The problem is, you may be coming into here to now figure out how can I have people on my team be effective team members? How can I change them to become more effective, to deliver more value? You can't force change in other people. I think everybody is a little bit stuck in their ways sometimes. Like if someone tells you, you have to do it this a different way, you're going to push back. You're like, no, I don't want to change. Same thing's going to happen if you try to take the lessons I'm going to talk through today and go to your team members and tell them, start doing this. They're going to just push back on you. It's not going to work. You're not going to foster a successful atmosphere. But what you can do, you can't force change people, but you can inspire change in others. And the way you do this is by making sure you are as effective of a team member as possible, that you are embodying those 4 traits of communication, collaboration, positivity, and responsibility. What that means is, yes, the rest of this talk, what we're going to talk about today is basically I'm going to be giving you homework to take for the rest of your careers and the rest of the time you work on teams. First and foremost, I want to talk and provide an understanding of how effective team members lead to team success and why each of those 4 attributes allow someone to be an effective team member and how they add to the success. To do this, I'm going to give you some examples, real-world examples of teams I think have been successful or continue to be successful and have effective team members, and give a little explanation about which of those traits they embody and how that allows them to be successful. And again, by success, I mean deliver value, manage time, and maximize skill sets. And finally, for your homework, for every trait, steps you can take to demonstrate and inspire the rest of your team members to become effective, and in turn, make yourself an effective team member. I'm not going to force you to do this. I'm just going to hopefully inspire you to do these things. So let's get into it. We'll start with the first one, communication. Now, there's many values of being able to communicate and communicate clearly. And when I say clearly, what I mean is the ability to express ideas, challenges, problems, so that everybody has an understanding. Everybody has the same understanding. If you don't have clear communication, if you are someone who can't clearly communicate to your team members, hey, this is the problem I'm having, these are the challenges the client wants us to face, this is the value I have to deliver, you're going to waste time. You're going to waste time on miscommunication by reiterating over and over what you're trying to do, that the work that was done is not working towards the goals. You're going to waste all that time. You're not going to maximize your teammates' skill sets, because if you can't clearly tell each other what you're good at, what you want to focus on, you don't know how to really utilize everybody. And then ultimately, that's going to lead you to not delivering the value your team is seeking out to deliver. So setting up communication is the first step in being an effective team member to remove those barriers and lead to those successful metrics. Now, a team that I've seen a few times in my life firsthand who really demonstrate the value of team success through communication are long-haul flight crews. Has anyone here ever been on a trans-Pacific, transatlantic, transcontinental flight? Something 10 plus hours. What's interesting about those flights, and you may not know this, for most airlines, I can't say for all, but for most airlines, the flight crews on a long-haul flight, that flight is the one time they're ever going to be a team. This has to do with many complexities about people working from different geographical locations, but that one flight from point A to point B is the only time all those people, all those flight attendants and those pilots are going to work together. They have a very strict time limit where they need to be able to clearly communicate with each other to make a flight successful. How do they do this? Hours before a flight, they get together, behind security. they meet in a room somewhere in the airport, and going into it, they know they can be honest with everybody on the team. They know that they can set up and start talking about things like what's going to go on for the flight, the weather, that minutia, and they can build up this quick rapport with each other where they feel comfortable with sharing their information. But they can say, last couple of days I was on a bender, so I'm a little under the weather, so I can't do all the hard work. Hopefully no one on a flight is saying that. That's a bad example. But they're able to be honest with each other, and they build this sense in an environment of teammanship by talking to each other hours before a flight. Within their respective roles, they define specific tasks everyone's going to take on and who might be best suited to work first class or coach. The pilots talk about how they're going to communicate or when certain tasks are going to happen. And they settle all that before the flight starts, because once that hatch closes until it opens, that's the only time they have to work together. So they have to be as clear as they can. So once they are on a flight, the flight attendants know who to talk to when there's a problem with passengers. They know how to communicate with passengers so that all the flight attendants are providing the same messaging, the same information. And they don't have to waste time running up and down the aisles trying to confer in the galleys, like, how are we going to explain dinner service to the next person? If they didn't establish clear communication, if they didn't hold that as a core tenet of their team, we've seen in the past examples of what happens when flights and flight crews can't clearly communicate to passengers. Bad things happen, flights are not successful. So I think they're a great example of building up this communication and being able to quickly talk and honestly talk with your teammates to be effective, to deliver value, in their case, a safe and pleasant flight. So how do you foster communication within your own team to deliver and foster team success? You need to be an active listener. So there's two types of listening. There's active and passive. Passive listening, that's when you're hearing what someone's saying to you, but you're not internalizing it. This is the case where I'm sure, since we're all in Drupal-related fields, we have clients or stakeholders we talk to, when they're explaining their problems and we're multitasking on our laptops, or you're in that meeting and someone says, I'm sorry, I was multitasking, can you repeat that? That's passive listening. Your body heard someone say something, but you didn't internalize it. You need to focus on being an active listener, so paying 100% attention when someone's talking to you. This could be a stakeholder, this could be your teammates during your daily stand-up, this could be your team leader. Whomever's involved with what your team has to accomplish to deliver value, you want to pay attention to what they're saying. You don't want to be internalizing what you're going to reply with. Just pay attention. And when you do this, what then you start doing is asking questions. If anyone was at the earlier talk by Dwayne McDaniel on the discovery process, he talked a lot about asking open-ended questions and prompting conversation. It's the same thing here. I think it's like a discovery process in your team itself. As you're listening, don't be afraid to ask questions that incite your team members or your stakeholders or whomever to provide more information. Why do we have to do this? How are we planning on doing that? What was this issue that we're facing? Provide me more information. When you get that information from your teammate and you ask the questions back, what you're doing is building an atmosphere of over-communicating so that you're going back and forth and back and forth. What I heard you say was blah, 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 until everybody's on the same page and say, yes, that is what I told you, that is what I mean. By being an active listener, asking questions, and over-communicating, you're going to have this clear communication. Everyone's going to, over time, get better at clearly explaining their ideas in a way that the rest of the team can understand. And you can use that to then figure out who's best for what job, really understand what time you have to work in, and then, most importantly, what value your team is supposed to deliver. Now, if you start doing these things and you see a benefit in yourself, a benefit to your team, what your team members are going to see and what you're going to foster is your team members opening up to each other, to them starting to listen to each other, not just tuning out when it's not their turn to talk during stand-ups, and they're going to share their ideas. They may, the most junior dev on your team may perk up with an idea of how to solve a complex problem because they've been reading up on the newest technologies, let's say, and they might otherwise not feel comfortable to be honest about that. Or someone's going to share that they are not sure how to solve a task they've been tasked with, and instead of trying to work through it, kind of like an imposter syndrome thing, they'll share that openly during your stand-ups. Collaboration, the second most important. Well, they're all important. The second trait. And I said this when I was going over these four, but if your team isn't collaborating, I mean, collaboration is exactly what a team is. It's a group of people working together. If your teammates can't work together, they're just working in parallel. Maybe they're duplicating efforts. They're wasting time because they're trying to solve the same problems. And they're creating redundancies, and they're only able to work on minuscule issues, which maybe for a while that'll help you get to your long value. But if you have a team, you want to solve problems that are bigger than any one person can work on. And they need to be able to work together to do this. You need to provide a sense of collaboration and demonstrate how to collaborate with team members. A great example, an extreme example, I might say, of collaboration is the Atlas experiment at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. This is the Atlas device on the screen. I wish there was a person in this picture to show you the scale, but if you look on the left or on the right, you'll see ladders back there, so to kind of get the scale of this thing, it's massive. What's interesting about the Atlas device, what it's testing for is the standard model, like the very fabric of our universe. What makes it up, what powers it, that's what this is testing for. It is run by a team of over 3,000 scientists and engineers representing 38 countries. They all work together, they collaborate to make sure this device works, that is testing things, that it can provide the, I don't want to say the right data, but it provides data that then they can go and interpret and figure out what everything, what all this means. And what's interesting about the Atlas group is they're completely self-managing. They try not to have any real hierarchy or bureaucracies. They represent 38 countries, but they got rid of, they don't have to go through their governments to do this. They're like, we're scientists, we're going to work together. We don't care about borders. So every now and then, I don't know the exact time, I think maybe every quarter, they get together virtually, in person, and they kind of reorganize into smaller teams. They figure out who has the skills to work on this newest electrical component we want to build. I know the science behind it. I know the formulas we need to use, but I need help building the actual device. And they figure out the smaller teams and self-assemble. They do their work. Then they collaborate again. And what's really great is they share every piece of data with each other. 3,000 scientists sharing every single discovery they have from this device. Every output of information goes to everybody. Now, we use that because in science, we like to check and recheck facts. We like to duplicate experiments, make sure what we're finding works. But it's just, they also like to take that and know that someone with a different, a physics background versus someone with theoretical physics background, they're going to interpret that data different ways, and they're going to value that in different ways and deliver different value. So I think they're an extreme case of demonstrating the effectiveness of collaboration just from their massive scale. 3,000 people is about on par with how many people attend DrupalCon North America, right? That's crazy. Imagine all those people working together. I guess they all do, right? We all work on Drupal to solve this one common goal, and we're all clear on what the goal is. All these 3,000 scientists are clear on what this Atlas device needs to test for, the standard model, and they work on figuring out who is best suited for each task for it. So how do you foster collaboration within your team? How do you demonstrate the effectiveness of being a great collaborator? First and foremost, you need to share your knowledge. Let's follow the scientific model here. Has anyone here heard of the hit by a bus scenario? Raise your hand if you have. All right, some hands. I hear laughs. That's great. Well, it's kind of morbid, but it goes like this. Imagine on Monday you're going to work and you are hit by a bus. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody. And after proper time of mourning, can your team pick up where you left off? Are they able to continue delivering their value and produce it and working towards the goals they're set out to do? Think of it a less morbid way. If you go into work on Monday and suddenly someone on your team is gone, they found a new job, they quit, they wanted to go shoot photography and sell them on Etsy. Who knows? Can your team pick up where that person fit in and continue delivering value? Can you self-organize and reevaluate? If that one person held all the knowledge for a very particular thing, maybe like how a piece of functionality works, maybe the communication between your client and your team, if they're the only ones who can do that, you have a gap in knowledge, right? And you're going to struggle. You're going to mismanage time to reevaluate and figure out what you have to do. So demonstrate sharing your knowledge. When you learn something, when you're like, I figured out how to fix this problem, let me tell you how I did it, team. Or I just learned this new requirement from our client, let me explain to you how I understand what that means. Let's talk about it. Share that knowledge, because when you do that, you create opportunities for your team members to work together. So you can say, hey, I was just on the phone with the client. They explained that they need this new piece of functionality that needs to do X, Y, and Z. Who here is able to help me? Who's finished their sprint tasks already? Your team members can raise their hands like, oh, I can do it. Oh, John can do it too. Let's tackle this. You're front end, I'm back end. Let's work together. Another way to create opportunities is by offering and asking for help. I think in development specifically, there's a unconscious bias or stigma about asking for help. It's an imposter syndrome where you feel afraid to ask for help, that you're going to be found out that you're not good at your job. When asking for help is the best way to get others to collaborate with you. So be the first one when you are stuck on a problem to raise your hand and say, I need help on this. Teammate, I need help on this. Client, I need help on this. This is what I don't understand. Do you have the skills to help me? Or if you see someone on your team struggling, be like, hey, Sarah, I saw, during stand-up you talked about you were stuck in this problem. It's been 2 days. Can I just sit down? Maybe I can be a cardboard developer. And we just talk through it. Can I help you? You're fostering a sense of collaborating with each other. You're opening up the opportunities for people to ask for help and demonstrating it's okay to do so. And that provides an opportunity to solve the problem together. And as you do that, as you create these opportunities, as you demonstrate the value of sharing your knowledge to your team and avoiding anybody getting hit by a bus, you foster for success of your team is allowing them to share their ideas and really work together to tackle problems bigger than any one of them could do. Doing so allows them, by sharing ideas and working together, allows them to maximize their skill sets, having one person work on one piece that they're best suited for versus another person. To manage the time so people aren't duplicating efforts, they're working together. And to ultimately deliver that value that your team is seeking to deliver. All right, positivity. Now, I collaborated with my team in building this presentation. And when I came to positivity, my team member was like, hey, positivity is great. It's not the only thing, though. Negativity is not a bad thing. And I totally agree. Negativity is not a bad thing. So, again, I'm going to clarify. When I say positivity, I don't mean you have to just force a smile that everything's going to be fine. What's like that comic with the dog and the fire in the background? Like, it's fine. Everything's fine. That's not what I mean by positivity. I more think positivity as a can-do attitude and using negatives in negative situations as drivers and not distractors. What this means is when your team is faced with a challenge, when the client changes their requirements for the third time, you're not allowing your team to be like, we're never going to get this done by the deadline. This is impossible. Instead, you flip it around by saying, you know what, team? We've faced, this is the third time they've changed requirements. The second time, we were able to meet those requirements on time. I know we can do it again. So it's all about reaffirming team confidence and keeping the team focused on their shared goals and the value you want to deliver. The team that I could best think of as an example of positivity are the Goonies from the 1986 movie The Goonies, which if you haven't seen it, unfortunately I'm not going to say too bad spoiler alerts because it's over 30 years old. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. But a quick recap, The Goonies, it's about a group of kids who have to save their homes from foreclosure, and of course they do it. Ben, you haven't seen The Goonies before? Oh, well, sorry. It's a great movie. So they have to save their home from foreclosure, And they do it the most logical way is by finding a treasure map in the attic and following it under a series of caves below their town to a pirate treasure, being chased by murderous bandits, of course, and facing booby traps. They have a phrase they use as the group, that Goonies never say die. They only use it a couple times in the movie, but what I like about it is what that affirms to the team is a sense of confidence, and that no matter what, they are not going to give up. Goonies never say die, Goonies never quit. There's a scene in the movie in particular, now you can block your ears if you don't want to hear specifics, but there's a scene in particular where Andy, the girl in the yellow, so let me set up the scene. They're being chased by bandits who are chambered behind them in this labyrinth of the cave. They're in this room where the only exit is behind a big slab of rock, and the only other thing in the room with them is a pipe organ made of human bones. And of course, on the back of the pirate map are the notes you have to play successfully to get out of the room and open the door. None of them play piano. But Andy said, she's like, I think I can help the team. I took a couple piano lessons. I might be able to do this. So she gets up to the organ, she plays a note, the door opens a little bit, awesome. She plays another note, it's wrong. A third of the floor falls away into a dark abyss. Scary. She plays another note, great. A wrong note, second third of the floor falls away. Uh-oh. She has one more chance to make a mistake, or to get it right. At this point, she's nervous. She's feeling a little negative about what she can accomplish. So the Goonies leader, Mikey, who is this character in the back here, he comes up to her and he says, hey, you're a Goonie, and it's okay. Goonies make mistakes. We're behind you 100%. Just don't make any more mistakes. He's telling her, like, it's okay. We know you can do this. We're behind you. We're giving you the sense of positivity. And sure enough, she plays the right note. They get out of the room. Hijinks ensue, and they do find the pirate treasure and save their homes. It's a Disney movie, so of course it ends happily. I mean, you wouldn't want to see this group of kids perish. That would not be a good movie. So they're an ultimate sign of positivity, that they're facing these deadly obstacles that they are unsuited for as a team, because they're a group of kids. But they know together they have this can-do attitude, that they can do it, that they can save their houses, and they do. So how do you foster positivity in your team? By being an effective team member to foster that success in your team. Highlight accomplishments. As humans, it's very easy for us to dwell on the negatives. If I asked everyone here, tell me 5 times you embarrassed yourself in front of somebody, you can immediately think of those 5 things. I guarantee it. But if I said to you, tell me 5 times you impressed somebody, it's going to take you a little longer. And this is a natural defense mechanism we have. It saves us from danger. So when your team is facing obstacles, when they make mistakes, it's easy for them to dwell on those negatives. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you said something completely wrong or what you deem stupid, and later on you're driving home, you're like, oh, I can't believe I said that, right? You get stuck on that. And it could be from a conversation from like 6 months ago, and you bring it up, you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. We can focus on the negatives, so we need encouragement on our accomplishments. So like the scenario I brought up earlier. The clients changed the requirements for the 3rd time. I know this seems like an impossible task, but we've done it before. I saw everyone on this team, the last 2 times the client changed the requirements, we were able to meet them and get it done. We figured it out. I know we can do it again. Highlight those accomplishments of the team, and in doing so, you foster this can-do attitude. Like, Penny, I know the solution you're supposed to deliver by the end of the sprint, it didn't really happen. You made a lot of progress. I know you can do the rest of it this sprint. I know that we can do this. It's all about encouragement. And finally, the best way to do that is by demonstrating to your team that you trust them. How many people here want to be the person on the team who's mistrusted and not given any responsibilities? Good. No hands went up. No hands should go up at home either. That's another trick question. Right? Everybody who's on a team wants to be trusted. Everybody who's part of a team, no matter if they're misguided or whatnot, they want to deliver a value and provide a value to that team. So you need to demonstrate to your team that you trust them. This is, if you're a team leader, trying not to micromanage. Trying to give the team as much information as they need, making sure everyone understands what needs to be done, and letting them figure out the specifics based on their skill sets and their roles. Trusting that we have to deliver these 6 things by the end of our sprint Each one of you has taken it on. I know you're going to figure it out on time. Let me know if you need help. I trust you to do this. I trust you to come to me for problems. So if you trust your team, if you show them that you trust them, if you foster that we can do it, it's a challenge, but we can take it on, and highlight accomplishments of past examples of doing that, what you start to foster is that your team members see challenges as opportunities and not as obstacles. That they look forward to having those twists, like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, on their projects. That they look forward to having that opportunity to really work together and solve these complex problems, instead of being like, oh, I can't believe we have to do this. There's no way we're going to do it. That leads your team to, again, it drives them to maximize the skill sets of everybody. It drives them to figure out the best way to use their time to face these opportunities and deliver that value. All right, the fourth trait, responsibility. Again, this is all about all for one and one for all. If no one on the team has a sense of responsibility or demonstrates it, everyone's going to just pass the buck when things go wrong. Everyone's going to let the project slide. They're going to let the work dwindle and not produce what they need to do. They're going to do the minimum they have to not get yelled at or whatever. Responsibility on your part, or on any successful team's part, is all about promoting the team goals and make sure everybody understands that no matter how small of a role they have on a team, they're responsible for delivering on those goals. That without them, the team can't be successful. It's all about sharing team success, but also sharing team setbacks. That it's not just one person who fails, the whole team fails. So it's in everybody's best interest to have a responsibility for everybody else. And reaffirming that every team member matters. And a really extreme example of responsibility, this is the Red Bull F1 Racing pit crew, made up of over a dozen people. They have been clocked at getting their F1 race car through a pit stop in under 2 seconds. They can do it in 1.932 seconds. That is an amazing feat. I don't know everything they do, but there's a video that I'll link to later that when you watch it, it's just like, you can't believe how fast they act. And the only way they can do that is because each one of these people has an individual task, no matter how small it is. If it's holding the lug nuts, if it's holding the spare tire, changing the tire. I think this guy's holding a mirror. Someone actually has to lift up part of the car. Each one of those roles matter, and it matters that each one of those people do their role as best they can. Because if one of them does not hold the team, if one of them does not think they're important, they're not going to do their job or their role as well, and the whole team's going to suffer. They're not going to deliver that value. So each person matters, and they all know this. They know that if they don't do the best they can, the team's not going to be the best that it can be. They're not going to deliver the value they're supposed to deliver, which is getting that car through the pit stop as fast as possible so the race car driver can win the race.
We're all drinking Red Bull. That's how
They all have wings. They all drink Red Bull. I think that's what's in the gas can back there. And then they give it to the driver. Right, yeah. But they all need that energy. I mean, that's a great point. They all need that energy, and whether it's through Red Bull or they're just amped up because they're part of it, they're excited, they have a sense of responsibility for the team. So how do you foster this sort of extreme sense of responsibility in your team? You need to adopt an ownership mindset. And I also highlighted this earlier too, where you can't think of a team as just something you're a part of. You have to think of it as your team, no matter what your role is. If you're a junior dev, if you're the newest person on the team, or you're the team leader, the team is yours. You are an active part of it. You need to have that mindset that the team can only do well if you do well. The whole team's going to fail if you fail. Demonstrate that in everything you do, in every way that you communicate with your team members, in every task you take on, every time you're collaborating with another team member. You have to put forth that ownership mindset and really put forth that effort and demonstrate that. Part of an ownership mindset is holding yourself accountable, again, for successes and for mistakes. Try not to pass the buck when you screwed something up, when you've made a mistake. Again, this is like fostering positivity or communication. I forget which one. But when you make a mistake, or positivity, because it's like the Goonies. When you make a mistake, say, that's okay, I made a mistake. Hey team, I need help with this. This was my fault. This was not so-and-so's fault. This was not the third party's fault. It was my fault. I need help. And then share and promote success of the team. Nobody likes it when they've put forth months and months of effort and the final product gets revealed, and then it's the team leader or the project manager who's like, yep, the team did this, but it's because it was under my leadership, right? You feel like, I put in all this effort. What's it matter? Why should I put in this extra effort if I'm not going to get any of the credit for the work I did? So share and promote success. If you do demos, like if you run in sprints and you do demos, give everybody on the team a chance to participate in that demo and show off the work that they accomplished. Highlight by talking to managers or other people who are above your team member. When someone really does something well, go and talk to their manager and be like, hey, this person really helped me out on this problem. They're clear, they're direct, they gave me extra time, and I want to be able to complete what I did without them. People like to hear that. They like to get that feedback, and it makes them feel more positive about the team they're working on, and that energizes them to have more responsibility on the team and really take it more seriously. So when you share and promote success, when you demonstrate being accountable and you have this ownership mindset, what you're demonstrating to your team and what you can inspire them to do is think of team success as individual success. We all want to kind of work for ourselves, so have the person know that if they do the best they can, they're allowing the team to do the best that they can. That if they don't try as hard as they can, the team is not going to deliver their value, use that time, or allow everyone to use their skill sets the best they can. So, you need to be an effective team member by demonstrating strong communication skills, promoting collaboration, demonstrating a positive can-do attitude, and really thinking of the team as on your shoulders, that you have a responsibility to the team. Now, with those four things said, no matter how well you demonstrate those and prove their effectiveness to your team, you're going to run into distractors. There's going to be those people who, no matter how hard you push, they push back with negative things. And this could be in your internal team. This could be the wider team. Like if you're building client projects, there could be that one person on the client side who just seems to be like pushing against everything you do. I believe that these distractors, no one wants to be mistrusted on a team. Everyone wants to drive team goals. They are just misaligned on what the team's trying to do. And it's up to us as having that sense of team responsibility of guiding these distractors, guiding them in a way that helps align them with the rest of the team. How can you do this? It goes back to those four traits, but you need to communicate with them. If someone seems to be a distractor, they're constantly battling against the rest of the team, sit down with them and ask those insightful questions. Like, hey, Pete, I know you keep telling us we're not going to make these dates. You keep telling us what we're trying to do is impossible. I need to understand why you think that's impossible. I need to understand where you're coming from so that we can figure it out. Let me know what obstacles you think are in the way. Let them explain themselves. Doing so will open up opportunities for you to provide them and encourage them to get involved with the team. Like, oh, all right, so you don't feel that the team has the skill sets needed to build this thing. How can you help the team do that? Do you have recommendations? Like, can you help me build the team up? And then remind them of the past accomplishments of the team. If they keep pulling back that their team's screwing up, like, yes, we missed these 2 deadlines, but we accomplished all this. Even still, we've still made progress. We're still improving. And then foster that team ownership. Be like, you're an active part of this team. We can't be successful unless you're helping us. How can you help us? I think if you can do this, if you can reach a distractor in these ways, you're going to figure out that they are just misaligned. They are thinking that the team is trying to do something different. And maybe, if they're like a key stakeholder, maybe they're right. Maybe that's what the team is supposed to be doing. But you're going to clear that up and get everybody aligned. And they won't be a distractor. They're going to be a contributor. If you can't do that, I had a question asked to me about this. Someone who works in the government, they're like, well, we can't really make these changes. I can't get rid of this person. What am I going to do? And either you figure out a different role for that person and this is kind of like working around the person, they still have a role, but maybe you lessen it or you bring in somebody else to help. So foster team success by focusing on, in yourself, demonstrating being an effective communicator, an effective collaborator, positive attitude for your team, and a sense of responsibility. How many people here feel like they could start demonstrating one of these things to any team they're working on? Yeah, every hand. All right, great. What's great about that, as soon as you do that, you're going to hopefully inspire one person on your team to start working better in these areas. And if you do that, inspiration snowballs. So you inspire one person, now the two of you inspire a third person on your team, fourth person, fifth person. Before you know it, the whole team is really energized. They're really working and fostering this successful attitude and air for the team. And they believe the team can accomplish anything. And you're going to do great things. Now, I hold, for example, the whole Drupal community. We kind of try to inspire each other. We give these presentations. We have conferences. We get together. We run sprints. We encourage people to work together. And it's a global community that we're all focusing on making this one technology better. And as we pull in more people, we inspire them. We kind of get them hooked on Drupal and inspire them to help contribute to it. So I think you can do the same for any team you work on. Now I have a couple resources here. This presentation is at ned17team, or sorry, bit.ly.ned17team. I'll also tweet it out at 12:34 exactly, because that's what I set my automatic tweet to go out. That's annotated, because I understand you won't hear me talking. So the slides are annotated, or the presentation is. I also have the slides on SlideShare and Ned17 Team Slides. I learned about long-haul flight crews from a book called Skyfaring by Mark Van Acker, who is a pilot for British Airways. It was his lifelong dream to become a pilot, and he did it, and it has great insights into what goes on with being a pilot and flight crews. Really interesting read if you're into it. I have a link to more information on the Atlas experiment at CERN and how it links to the page that they talk about how they collaborate with each other, which is really insightful. I have a link to the video of the Red Bull F1 pit crew getting that car through the pit stop in under 2 seconds. And then they also have a slowed down version of it, like slow-mo, which you just see how many different things go on. It's amazing. And then I did mention this in my talk, but a book I really take a lot of value from is called Taking People With You by David Novak. It's a book about leadership, but it's really about building up teams. It's a engaging read. I highly recommend it. And then as I mentioned at the beginning, I have a podcast on the non-technical side, being a developer. Episode 7 of Season 1 was the 4 attributes of a great development team, which helped inspire this talk. So if you want to know more, it's a half hour. You can listen to it there. I'd be very appreciative if you listened to it. Now, presentations themselves at conferences, I feel like we're all a team. We have different roles. Your role is to listen. My role is hopefully to give you some insights to take away. You also have a role of providing me feedback so I can make this better and improve the next time I give it. You have a responsibility of this presentation getting better. So please, if you have any feedback, talk to me afterwards. You can tweet it at me, #NetCamp. I'd love to hear constructive criticism, just ways to make it better. With that, we have some time for questions, and I will take them after applause. Thank you. I like the jazz snaps. Great. Are there any questions?
I wanted to say that there's this great company. It's called Adafruit, and they make little microcontrollers and things with Uno. And as developers, we get in this mindset where you get stuck hearing nothing about about bug reports and this is broken and that is broken. So one thing that they did at Adafruit was, instead of giving bug reports all the time, they started giving hug reports, where they would publicly acknowledge something awesome that somebody else on the team did. Hey, this person over here did this awesome thing for me today, and it saved me hours, and I deeply appreciate them. We started doing the same thing at Bioraft, and it's caught on, and it really increases the positivity, and it also increases the feeling of ownership, because people feel like they're doing things and they're getting recognized by their peers for it. So that is a real concrete thing, and it's super easy to do, super simple to do on your own teams, and it plays in exactly with what Mike was talking about here on the slides.
Great. So I'll reiterate that for the microphone, that you took at BioRef an example from Adafruit where instead of just doing bug reports, they put out hug reports, which talk about the positive things people have done to help each other on the team. And it brings up positivity, and that in turn fosters responsibility on every team member. I think that's a great example of something active you can do and demonstrate the value to your team and really energize them. Thank you for sharing that, Eric. Any other questions or thoughts?
Just a minor thought, the question of sharing knowledge, it feels like it's important to find the right balance between spending all your time documenting everything you've done and telling everyone everything and sharing enough knowledge with enough people that they could reconstruct what they need to know if you did get hit by a bus.
Yeah, it's sharing knowledge is definitely a balance of spending the time to like write documentation or figure out how to talk about it and still having time to actually work on the stuff you need to work on. I think one of that goes into as you're coming up with solutions or as you're building things, not just through documentation, but being like, oh, I saw this really clever way. Does everybody want to know about it? Like provide that opportunity for people to learn and not just be like, I did my part, task is done, next one, because then it's a black hole for people. So it's also about just talking through it and being excited about the work you've done and sharing it that way, I think is a good balance. Great. If there's no more questions, then we're going to be the first ones in line for lunch, and that's exciting. So should I hit stop? All right, thank you, everybody.